How would you feel if you worked your guts out every single day, only to have your money stolen? You drag yourself out of bed, get stuffed into a train, miss time with your family, all to pay some of the highest taxes in the world, trusting that money will be used properly. But it's not. It's being funneled into scams, fraud, and straight-up corruption. This isn't a hypothetical. This is happening right now. And I'm going to show you the hard data that proves how this systemic theft comes directly out of your mortgage and your family's future. It all started with one of Australia's most noble ideas. But that idea has become a financial black hole, a multi-billion-dollar honeypot, attracting an army of sharks. And it's your money they're after. That noble idea, that financial black hole, is the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS. The principle is something every decent Australian supports, properly caring for people with a significant and permanent disability. But good intentions don't give Canberra a blank check. The problem isn't the intention, it's the sheer, staggering scale. And that scale is exactly how ordinary taxpayers get bled dry. Pay attention, because this is where your money begins to vaporize. In 2025 to 26, the budget for NDIS participant support is projected to hit $52.3 billion. That is now more than we spend on defense in an entire year. It's the third largest federal program, behind only pensions and healthcare. And Canberra doesn't find that money down the back of the couch. Every extra billion poured into this scheme has to come from you, through higher taxes, more debt your kids repay, or cuts to services you actually use. Now imagine trying to secure an operation of that magnitude. More than 800,000 participants and about 350,000 separate service providers. Every day an endless stream of invoices, plans and claims hits the system. No one is reading those line by line. At best they sample a fraction after the money has gone out the door. That's the design flaw. A multi-billion-dollar honeypot so vast no department can really watch it. To police it, you'd need an ATO-sized army of auditors, which would cost billions more. So instead it runs on trust and light spot checks. It was built on good intentions, not on robust security. And that is exactly the crack the predators crawl through. When a $52.3 billion pot sits there like that, you're not just funding support for people who genuinely need it. You're also funding the Rorts and straight-up scams out of your tax dollars, your household budget, and the tax cuts your family keeps being told we can't afford. So what is that weakness? It's not a subtle crack in the system. It's a backdoor left wide open by design into a vault filled with your money. The fraud isn't random. It's the direct result of a fundamental design flaw. To understand how your money disappears, you must understand this flaw. It has two parts. First, the system allows for what are called unregistered providers. A 2025 Australian National Audit Office report found that a staggering 94% of all active NDIS providers are unregistered. This means almost anyone with an ABN can become a service provider with minimal, almost non-existent checks. They don't need the same qualifications or face the same scrutiny as registered providers. Second, the system is often set up to pay these providers directly. The money doesn't always go to the participant to manage their own care. It goes straight from the NDIS to the provider's bank account. This creates a toxic incentive. The game stops being about providing support and starts being about how to maximize billing. This design didn't just create a loophole, it engineered a feeding frenzy. Think about this. In some Australian suburbs, NDIS providers now outnumber cafes. That is not a sign of a healthy support system. That is a gold rush. In the suburb of Lakemba in Sydney, there are over 1,300 registered NDIS businesses within a 5-kilometre radius. It's a saturation point. And don't think these are just small-time operators. These unregistered providers, the ones with the least oversight, receive 42% of all plan managed payments. It's a multi-billion-dollar shadow industry built on a system that was designed to be exploited. So the back door was left open on purpose. The invitation was sent. But who exactly are the vultures who answered the call? The specific examples of theft are more brazen and infuriating than you can imagine. And in the next section, I am going to show you exactly who they are and what they've been doing. So, who are they? Who are the vultures? Sometimes they look like a cleaning service. In 2026 in Sydney, YouTubers Pete Zagoulas and Drew Pavlou ran an undercover sting. They booked an NDIS provider for a basic clean. The crew was in and out in 25 minutes, and they left fingerprints and smudges behind. The bill? $236.06. 25 minutes of work you or I would have to fix, charged out like a premium service. When they pushed back, the excuse was a 2-hour government minimum. That's your money. For many of you, that's a day of pay gone on a job that wasn't done properly. A dodgy clean is just the entry fee to this party. It gets worse. In New South Wales, it jumps from petty rort to theft on a massive scale. A trio was jailed for a $5.8 million NDIS and tax fraud scheme. A combined 12 years in prison. $5.8 million. While you're in the supermarket standing at the shelves wondering if you can still justify the brand name or have to drop to generic to make the budget work, they were siphoning millions out of the system you fund every pay cycle. That wasn't the end of it. The Australian Federal Police had to step in and freeze millions in assets. One NDIS participant allegedly used scheme funds to buy property. That means someone building a real estate portfolio, getting ahead, using money that traces straight back to your payslip and your partner's overtime. Does that cash go to extra support workers? Better wheelchairs? No. It goes into luxury cars. It goes into holidays you only ever see in other people's photos. It goes into luxury apartments, paid for with your taxes, while you're lying awake doing the maths on your mortgage or the next rent rise. Your sacrifice, the hours in traffic, the missed dinners with your kids, is the fuel for their lifestyle. And when you think it can't get more insulting, it does. Your tax money, the money you drag yourself out of bed for, has been used to buy drugs. It's even been used to provide services to people who are already in jail. People already housed and fed by the system you're bankrolling. This isn't a support scheme anymore. It's a feast, and you're the one paying for the banquet. Looking at that, you'd expect one response. An army of investigators, a war on the scammers. You'd think the government would be slamming the door shut, freezing payments, clawing every cent back with force. But what if I told you the people in charge are doing the opposite? That the real gut punch scandal here isn't just the vultures at the feast, it's who's holding the door wide open for them. So, who is holding the door open? It's the people who are paid with your tax dollars to guard it, the government. And this isn't just incompetence. What you're about to hear goes so far beyond that, it feels like a deliberate betrayal. We've all heard the tough talk. The ministers at press conferences looking stern, promising a crackdown. They announced the Fraud Fusion Taskforce back in 2022 to hunt down these criminals. Sounds good, right? It's supposed to make you feel like your money is being protected. Now pay attention, because this is where the story turns sick. The task force received thousands of tip-offs. From those, they launched 660 official investigations. So, how many of those vultures ended up in court convicted for stealing your money? 200? 100? No, 23. Just 23 convictions out of a system bleeding billions. That isn't a crackdown. That is a rounding error. It's security theatre designed to keep you quiet while the house is being robbed. But the real rot, it's inside the system itself. This isn't just outsiders picking a lock. The NDIS's own integrity chief, a man named John Dardo, admitted something chilling in a parliamentary hearing. He said that in one group of plan managers they audited, 90% of them showed significant fraud signatures. 90%. Let that sink in. The very people meant to manage the money are the ones red flagged for stealing it. One expert put it bluntly, if the government actually prosecuted every case of fraud in the NDIS, our entire justice system would collapse under the caseload. That's how deep the rot goes. So what does the government do when faced with a $500 billion budget blowout? Do they fix the system? Do they go after the 90%? No. They do something much worse. They go after the vulnerable. They propose cutting support for children with mild autism, while the criminals are buying luxury cars. They want to take away help from a child. And all this while, a government minister had the nerve to stand up and say, the government is not an ATM. He's right. It's not an ATM for a family with a disabled kid. It's only an ATM for criminals, and the government has handed them the pin. It's hard to know what's more infuriating. The scammers stealing the money, or the government that watches it happen and then punishes the innocent? Let me know in the comments, which part of this story makes your blood boil the most? Because this isn't just some news headline about government waste, and this is the reason you're not getting ahead. Every time you hear a politician say they can't afford to give you a tax cut, or that they have to raise your rates, I want you to remember that 90%, with a hole this big in the national budget, genuine financial relief for you and your family isn't just delayed. It becomes a mathematical impossibility. This isn't just betrayal. This is the sabotage of your entire financial future. And that sabotage isn't a theory. It's a fiscal time bomb, and the clock is ticking right under your family budget. Pay close attention, because this isn't about past waste anymore. Picture a red line on a graph screaming upward like a countdown clock, sitting right over the top of your mortgage statement and weekly budget. This is about an active, growing threat to your financial survival. When they sold us the NDIS, they told us the full scheme would cost about $22 billion a year. A big number, but a manageable one. But this year the actual cost isn't $22 billion. It's $42 billion. Nearly double. That extra money had to come from somewhere. But even that isn't the number that should terrify you. The number that matters is the one that's coming next. Independent parliamentary reviews, not the government's rosy forecasts, show where this is really heading. They project the cost will blow out to an unthinkable $92 billion a year by 2032. That projected $92 billion isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's every single promised tax cut that never arrived. It's the reason the pressure on your mortgage never ends. Because when one program blows out like this, Canberra has only 3 levers. Cancel your tax cuts, quietly hike other taxes and levies, or slash services your family actually uses. Either way, there is less in your pay packet each month, more of your money dragged into the hole, and more pressure on you just to keep up with the bank. This is the active erosion of your upward mobility, the financial black hole that is consuming the very money you need to pay down your home loan, secure your family's future, and build a life you've earned. It's a direct transfer of wealth from your pocket into a broken system. Now it's easy to look at this mess and see only chaos and incompetence. But what if I told you this wasn't random? That this systemic failure, where everyone is incentivized to take as much as possible, is a predictable outcome. It has a name. Economists actually have a name for this, and once you understand that term, you see the rigged playbook for how your wealth is being drained. In the next part, we are going to talk about moral hazard, and I'll show you how this one concept explains exactly why this crisis was not just predictable, but inevitable. So, here it is. Moral hazard is an economic term for a simple, destructive pattern. One side takes the risk, someone else pays when it goes wrong. This is the rule behind every rort you've seen in this story. Once you can name it, the madness stops feeling random. Stop. Don't check out just because I used an economic term. This isn't a lecture. This is the autopsy report for your family's budget. If you miss how this one mechanism works, you will never understand why you're working harder but getting poorer. In the NDIS, moral hazard is baked into the plumbing. Providers face very little real downside when they overservice or overcharge. Official integrity reviews have flagged weak auditing, low detection rates, and complex rules that make serious enforcement rare. At the same time, the money flows straight to them. They're paid directly out of your tax dollars for every extra session, report, or support they can justify. Some prices are capped, but in many service categories, the limits are loose or easy to stretch. The rational move in a system like that is obvious. Maximize billable hours and let the taxpayer carry the risk. So this isn't about a few bad apples. It's the predictable outcome of a system that piles reward on one side and pushes the cost back onto you. The result? The NDIS has become a systematic profit engine, leaking more than $5 billion a year in fraud, waste, and overservicing. Government reviews and independent audits estimate that up to 10% of the entire budget is being siphoned off by these perverse incentives. That 10% is the moral hazard gap. Money that should be supporting genuine disability needs, but is instead being skimmed off the top. And that gap sits inside a scheme whose total cost is projected to spiral towards nearly $100 billion a year within the decade. When a program blows out like that, the federal budget doesn't magically stretch. Canberra either cuts elsewhere, or runs a bigger deficit and borrows more. Those bigger deficits put constant pressure on government to keep tax revenue high and delay real tax relief. That's how you end up with bracket creep and squeezed wage growth. There's less room in the budget for decent pay rises and less political appetite for broad tax cuts. Extra borrowing also feeds into the wider interest rate environment, one of the forces keeping rates higher for longer, and that flows straight through to your mortgage and every other debt your household carries. So, when we talk about a $5 billion moral hazard gap, this isn't an abstract number on a spreadsheet. It's one of the reasons your taxes stay among the highest in the developed world and why you feel like you get less and less back for what you pay. It's part of why promised tax cuts vanish, why your pay rises feel anemic, and why your interest bill keeps chewing through your family budget. You are personally covering the gap created by a system that quietly rewards the worst behavior. So the intellectual case is now closed, the math is clear, and the mechanism has a name. We've dissected the system and followed the money all the way back to your wallet. Next, we need to talk about what that really means for you, and the price we all pay if we keep looking away. So, what is the price of looking away? It's the cycle. The one we've just spent all this time mapping out. It's brutally simple, and it happens every single day. You get up, you put in the hours, you pay your tax. That money is funneled into a system we now know is structurally designed to be exploited, to leak billions. But this isn't just a story about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is the part where the bill for all that waste lands right back on your doorstep. It's the final infuriating turn of the screw. You pay the tax, they waste the money, and then you pay again. The people who benefit from this are counting on your silence. They are betting that you're too busy, too tired, too ground down by the daily grind to do a single thing about it. Prove them wrong. Sharing this video isn't about algorithms or likes. It's about drawing a line. It's resistance, because the price of your silence is a price you're already paying every single week. If you believe this has to stop, then subscribe. We have more work to do.